Commander Ransom is glad that Mariner and Boimler are sharing a comm badge. Devon Attendee proposes a cutiny, and Talin destroys a shuttle in a show of friendship. Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Seventh Rule with Sirach Lofton.
Hello, hello.
My name is Ryan T. Husk, and today we're doing a review of Star Trek Lower Decks Season 5, Episode 2, Shades of Green. Great title, written by Keith Fogelsong, directed by Bob Suarez. We've got a very special guest, everybody. Can you believe it? Supervising producer Brad Winters is here. How you doing, Brad?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
So good having you.
Yeah, welcome.
Thank you.
So, first and foremost, everybody is going nuts for season 5, as well they should. It's kind of bittersweet. I feel like it's going to become more and more and more bittersweet as we get to like episode 5, 7, 8, 9. But this has been such an amazing ride. Can you just give everybody kind of a sense of what the last 5 years, 6 years has been like for you?
It's been sort of a dream. It's been a huge opportunity. It's been a lot of fun. Mike and I were buddies well before working on Lower Decks. We actually were assistants together when he started the TNG Twitter account, the TNG season 7 Twitter account. When he was writing the book, Warped, I was reading a lot of those early drafts. It's just been kind of a running thing through our friendship and our professional lives. And then Lower Decks became an opportunity for us to not just be nerdy friends together, but then also work on something together. I come from more an animation production background, Mike, animation, writing, development. So it was kind of nice to have an opportunity to like work with your buddy, work with your friend, and on something, we're both big Star Trek nerds. This, who's going to say no? Like the idea then that we got 5 seasons out of it, that there's 50 episodes, that we used to joke about, wow, what if we're on Memory Alpha one day? And like, now we're there. So it's been surreal. It's been great. And getting to meet all the people, the legacy actors, and to play with them too, to like be telling the Borg Queen how to blow softly on skin and to be, asking Commander Riker to say red alert. It's like playing with your action figures, but you're getting paid to do it. It's great.
Awesome.
That kind of leads me into my question, Brad, about what was it that you were most excited to do while working on production on this show? I mean, you mentioned being a fan of the series already. What were some of the things you were most looking forward to?
It was this is going to reveal my anxiety as a producer, but a lot of the first year but like before anybody saw anything, it's we got to get it right. We got to, there were some cards stacked against us, I feel, in while we've been embraced the idea of a Star Trek comedy, a Star Trek animated comedy, a Star Trek half hour. These are a lot of like, okay, people already have some preconceived notions about what we're up to. So a lot of that first year was, no. The ground needs to be this color gray. There was, the uniform. There was questions from people, you get a team of artists together that maybe don't know Star Trek. And they're like, these color combinations, the red, the yellow, the blue, like they don't really look good on camera. Maybe we can switch it up. And I'm like, no. That ship has sailed. Like Roddenberry made a choice. We're going to stick with it. A lot of it was that at the top, like we want to do it right. We want to make sure people understand where we're coming from. And then when the show came out, I feel like there was a slow buildup over season 1 of people starting to like, okay, I think maybe I like it. Maybe I see what they're doing. And then by the finale, I feel like that's when most of the fans were like, all right, I'm on board. I understand what this show is. So then it was season 2 became all right, now we crossed that bridge. Now I can have fun. Mike was having fun the whole time. I was terrified.
What you're saying really rings true from people watching on the outside. There was, I don't want to say skepticism, But
It was
maybe,
skepticism.
I mean, from our point of view, from like watching the fans on social media, like it was more like trepidation. Is that like slightly less than where people, like you said, comedic, animated, half hour, I'm gonna watch it, but I'm
Yeah.
confused, right? And then it was really fast, at least among fandom. It was pretty quick. By like the third, fourth, fifth episode, I started noticing that the real hardcore Star Trek fans, you know, like the ones where you say a scene and they name the title of the episode, or the ones that know Kivas Fajo and all these kind of things, like they really get all the deep. Those were the ones that were embracing it the most and super hard. And that first Star Trek convention right after, when I would see my buddies that are like the most deep cut Star Trek fans sporting the lower deck stuff, I was like, these guys made it. You guys, mission accomplished.
I was walking around the convention floor at Star Trek Chicago. So since we came out during COVID, we didn't really get to do a lot of conventions and a lot of in-person stuff. So we were walking around in Chicago, and our composer, Chris Westlake, was like, the one with the white stripe, that's us, right? And I said, yeah. You see a uniform with the white stripe, that's us. And he's like, there's a lot of them. Like, I feel like it's most of them. And I'm like, yeah, Chris, that's why I'm excited. I'm like, and that panel too, that first panel in person with the cast that we had out there. And then all thanks to John Van Sitters for a last minute getting them in costume and then coming out on stage. And that felt like a very great homecoming versus, like I was saying, I was getting some DMs and some messages in 2019 about Lower Decks that were sort of like, I'm like, oh, wow. People I just thought Star Trek was a fun show that I watched. People have opinions and thoughts.
Strong ones.
Yeah, there were some very angry people. But it was very nice then to like meet the fans. You know, I just did the Sci-Fi Sisters last night. They say hello. They love you guys.
Awesome.
But, you know,
Love that.
meeting them in Chicago and getting to talk with fans and getting their experiences about the show, which, you know, in television, you don't get to do a lot, you know. In feature films, you can go to the AMC and slip into a screening and see an audience react to what you do. It doesn't happen in TV that much. So the fan response has been very appreciated.
Hey, real quick, right when you said Sci-Fi Sisters, I was like, oh yeah, I got my OG Sci-Fi Sisters
There it
pin
is.
right here. That's our favorite people right there. Anyway, sorry, you were saying, Sirach?
No, I was going to ask about this fifth season and kind of the approach that you guys were taking going into this fifth season. Was there like we want to close the chapter on certain storylines? We want, you know, what was the mentality going into this fifth season?
It's written so far ahead that we did not know this was going to be the end. But in television, every season might be the end. But, you know, It was never written to be like, and this is the culmination and the buildup of 5 years. And I think Mike's been pretty vocal about it, that even we made some adjustments when we knew, but regardless, you're going to see the end of an era with these characters, but not the end of these characters, if that makes sense. Like, their stories will go on. They're still going to do stuff. But this chapter where we've been, you know, they were there before we popped in, and they're going to continue doing stuff after we leave without being too spoiled.
Well, that's great to know. That sounds like a perfect end then. But actually, that kind of makes me think, and not to get too depressed on this, but it's kind of sad when a show ends that everybody loves, especially if you put your heart and soul into it. And your limitless knowledge, apparently, of Star Trek trivia and lore.
I remember things. Mike keeps saying that I'm the like repository of all things. It's like, no. But I go and read it, and then I'll retain it. You know, it's pretty great. I did a Deep Space Nine and TNG rewatch when we were starting the show to just remind myself of stuff. Found out there was one episode of TNG I'd never seen.
What? Which one? Which one?
It's the one with the Chalnoth where he like gets replaced and then he's put in a cell with 3 other aliens.
Yeah,
I don't know why in the syndication packages or whatever. I had never seen that
third
episode,
season.
and I was like falling asleep to it. And then the cold open was happening, and then I like shot up out of bed. I'm like, what is this? And so I got to experience a new episode of TNG. Same thing happened with Voyager. Weirdly enough, there's an episode where they're all getting replaced on the ship, and aliens are like popping in, and it's a slow infiltration. But I had seen every Deep Space Nine. I was covered there on my rewatch. There, I hadn't missed any.
Well, you get a pass. I'm going to write a pass for you. I want to ask you about the rewatch, because you mentioned on the rewatches. We've seen references to the original animated series a lot on the show, especially I think this is just the previous episode.
Yeah,
the last two episodes.
It's so good.
Right. With the blue
Orions.
Yep.
Yeah. So was that also part of the rewatch? That's the general.
That was, I know the writers all in season 1, they did a watch of the animated series. It'd be kind of like the lunch break, like let's watch some episodes. I think I had watched it for the first time when it came out on DVD. Like that was I had read about it in like the encyclopedias and stuff, but that was my first time getting to watch it. And I think the feeling from Mike and those season 1 writers were like, there's a lot of good stuff in here that like, let's pull it in. We, Dr. Tana being a Cation, done the Blue Orions. We've done the
Bem.
2 different types of bird people. Yeah. I love Sherry Yim Yang. I think that's the character's name. When we did our BIM, the female BIM, with the drill instructor. It's fun because people watch it, and if you know that's from the animated series, that's fun. If you don't know it's from the animated series, it's just a weird alien that showed up that week. That's always been sort of our goal with like the references and things. It's not so much you need to know this thing. Hey, we need a wacky alien. We have all these years of Star Trek to go back into. Let's find a wacky alien and pull them in. Right. It also makes it easier for the designers. We don't have to start from scratch. They appreciate that.
Nice.
It's
right.
Much nicer to say fill a bar full of aliens to be able to say fill a bar with 5 aliens from Star Trek and make up 2 new ones. Right. Just put something on their noses. You're fine. Yeah.
Hey, by the way, I see a Deep Space Nine behind you up there. That looks awesome.
There's my big Deep Space Nine, and then somewhere there's my tiny one right under it. Because I bought the tiny one, then they made the big one, and I'm like, well, of course I'm going to buy both.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to ask you, what do you think you're going to miss the most, or what, looking back, over the last few weeks or few months, once you knew that there may not be any future seasons, what makes you get the saddest or miss it the most?
It's cliched, but it's going to be the people. It's going to be, everyone you work with, not just the people on the show, but our outside vendors, like the record studios we work at, the engineers, obviously the actors, like, will I see the main actors? Yes, I'll see our main cast and stuff. I'll see them at conventions and things, but it's the guest actors, it's the people you see, the guy that gets me coffee, Andre, if you're watching, like the studio when you go that you build up a rapport with over 5 years. It's going to be missing those people. And then obviously everyone day to day on the show, the artists, everybody. But yeah, it's more that. It's more the job than it is the show. Mm-hmm. Love the show, but it's like you love the crew, you love the people. And it's just been kind of sad. Normally we have like an overlap of, hey, this part of the season's winding down, but the new part's, winding up for the next season. So like it's kind of like a school year. Like the writers come back, and then the designers start to come back, then the storyboard artists, and you have kind of a nice flow. And it's been sort of the bittersweet sadness of like when it's someone's last day, it's their last day. And we all work in the industry. We work in LA. We're taking a guy out to lunch for his last day 2 weeks ago, and I just saw him in the office today on a new show. in the break room. So it's not like we won't see each other ever again, but it's still a bummer. But
Yeah, I'm disappointed. I had predicted that this show would be the longest lasting show. I thought it just hit the ground running and really never not delivered, in my opinion. Always gave me entertainment.
To back him up, Sirach did say in the first season, he said, this show can go on 10 seasons. That's the first thing.
I thought it would be the longest running Star Trek show. And I actually believed that because I thought in the tradition of animation, I thought that we would be seeing that show follow in the footsteps of animated shows, as opposed to following in the footsteps of the traditional Star Trek series. I thought it was going to get the kind of longevity that you get out of,
and we still could.
Simpsons and all of those kinds of shows. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I got my start on Family Guy, which people forget about it now, but like famously canceled and came back.
Mm-hmm.
A ton of people, Don knows better than most people. Don Lewis, like Futurama, canceled and came back multiple times. King of the Hill's coming back. So what I'm hoping is we'll follow in the footsteps of those shows. And maybe it's a little pause and we'll come back. I'd like a much shorter pause. I'd like the Family Guy, like 4-year pause, maybe, not the King of the Hill 30-year pause, but like, that is the nice thing about animation. We do have the opportunity to come back. And, that's what's been so nice, especially with like a lot of the legacy actors. It's the opportunity to bring them back and tell them, like, you're not going to have to be in 12 hours of makeup. We'll get you in. You can have some fun, play around, and get to revisit that world, but then not the time commitment, or the sitting around waiting on set. A thing I've never experienced. We bring you in, you read your 12 lines or whatever, we get you out the door, have fun, have a party. You're not sitting around waiting for us to set up the shots. I know nothing about live action. I'm just an animation person.
Well, you pulled it off. Animation-wise, this has been a great show. I think that obviously Tawny Newsom's been an excellent lead for your show. Rutherford has been my kind of fan favorite for me growing, and I've really leaned towards him.
Eugene is a sweetheart. The whole cat. I was saying this with the Sci-Fi Sisters last night. You work in this business and you deal with actors and you can deal with difficult people. The way we lucked out to have 8 actors that are just all sweethearts. They're all the best. They're joys to work with. That's been one of the big regrets. I've had hang time with Jerry O'Connell about every week for 5 years, and I'm like, well, how am I going to get my Jerry fix? Like, I didn't know what's going on. I'll have to go over to the Talk or whatever, Pictionary, or the guy stays working. Go to one of his other shows to check in. But yeah, we have
an excellent cast. Don
and Jerry
Lewis,
said the same about you, by the way. He was like, "How am I gonna get my Brad fix?"
You got to be careful. Don't let Jerry O'Connell get your phone number, because he will call. He'll stop by. Tawny lives far out in the desert in a compound. It is hard to find Tawny's house. And she talks about she got a text one day from Jerry and Rebecca. They're like, "We're on our way. We're in the neighborhood." She's like, "What?
Who's ever in the neighborhood of a desert compound?"
Jerry will get there. But yeah, Fred, Jillian, they're all the best. I wish the fans had more FaceTime with Jillian Vigman. Just maybe one of the funniest people I've ever met. And so much of Dr. Tana is from her. People talk about all the swearing. I'm like, that only a little bit of that's on the page. That's a lot of the best. Yeah. I keep telling her she has to come to conventions, and she's like, people wouldn't care. And I'm like, they
might. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think so. I think they would care. Also, I had a quick question. I know we're running low on time, but I do have a quick question about working with Bob Suarez. I've seen his name come up a lot. Just a little background on him as a director. He seems like he's been one of the go-tos on this show.
Yeah, Bob's been around since season 1. I think he's also done Solar Opposites with Mike. I sadly don't get as much FaceTime with Bob because Barry Kelly, our supervising director, kind of, manages the director. Like Barry is their boss, so
Yeah.
I get to sit in meetings with Bob. I love Bob. He's very tall.
Okay.
But like, I know Barry loves Bob. I like Bob socially, but yeah, it's weird. Like in the way the process works, like day to day, there's not as much FaceTime.
Interaction.
Yeah, well, I know it's so different with like live action, the episodic directors, there's way more interaction and control on their particular episodes, where on an animated show, the supervising director is kind of making sure that the series, kind of the vibe of the series, the look, because otherwise, like, the drawings would change every episode. It would all start to feel like a different show. So yeah, Barry put together a great team. I've loved all the directors we've had on the show, though. Bob, Meg, Brandon in season 5.
Mm-hmm.
Had great people. Kim, a lot of great people in the 5 years. Yeah.
Well, Brad, we've been having so much fun watching this show. It's shocking that we've gone through the entire run of this series almost. 2 months from now, we're going to be saying, well, that was a delicious season of a delicious series. I'm full. Everything's great. I can't wait to have more someday, hopefully. It's amazing because you just started 4 years ago, and you just jam-packed so much in. Well, I mean, the series started premiering in 2020, but you've jam-packed so much in those 4+ years, which is the perfect metaphor for how much you jam-pack in every episode. You've provided us with so many memories and so many good times and so many inside jokes and references and things to talk about. Are you aware just how much of a conversation piece this show is for Star Trek fans?
Maybe not as much as I should be. That I'll be honest, that first year before we aired, I kind of went in ostrich mode of like, I can't read the comments, I can't read the subreddits, I can't look at the YouTube videos. Let's just focus on making a really good show, and hopefully people like it. And I would do little dip in season 1. I'm like, do they like this? Let me check. But I try to keep very, I'm too sensitive. It'll mess up with everything I'm thinking to know what things are, like what the opinion is. It's also a thing I can do the PSA now. There will be a lot of times fans are like, oh, well, they did this because they saw what we said in the previous season. Every season of Lower Decks was written before, season 2 was done being written before season 1 aired. Like there's not a conversation happening.
Wow.
So it's like, it's good they're liking it. But you see the costumes at conventions, and I got made fun of on the cruise because I don't revisit the show that much after it airs. And they had the Lower Decks bar on the cruise, and they were playing seasons 1 and 2 just on mute on the TVs there on a loop. And people kept making fun of me because I was just sitting there watching. And they're like, why are you watching your own show? And I'm like, I was like, that's a really beautiful, in season 1, when it's like a jellyfish alien that takes over the ship and expands out at the end. I was like, that's really good. I was like, that was a really good shot. We did a good job. And they're like, you made this. And I'm like, yeah, but you forget. It's a race to the finish line to get it out the door, get it to CBS, get it on the air, and then you kind of then put some distance on it, or at least I do. So it's been just now, knowing that it's ending, that I've started to like listen to some podcasts, go back and look at YouTube reaction videos and see what people have said. So it's felt really nice, but like I had to emotionally prepare myself when I knew the show was ending to hear the. But I love the cosplay. any convention I've been at, if I see Lower Decks cosplay, there's the guy whose mom knits everything for him. I've seen him as a whale. I've seen him as a Niggly Mo. I saw him at Vegas this year. He's my favorite, my absolute favorite cosplayer.
Mhm.
But, my last thing is, one of the things I love to see is those Disney art cells when they have those those cells framed from whatever Mickey Mouse or whatever it is. And I'd like to know if you have any of those from Lower Decks, and if you're going to be putting those up sometime in your cave.
We'd have to fake them. We could make some, but just we weren't on sale. We're a digital show, so yeah. Back in the day when I worked at Fox, there was I forget which season it is where The Simpsons switched over, where there's no longer any cells, and so went to an employee sale to get some Simpsons. Get that little piece of it. If you're at a convention or you see something, if you see a Lower Decks cell, you're getting.
Okay.
If you see a Simpsons one from like past season, whatever it is, like 14, that's it's a collectible they've made. But we can put one together for you. You pick this. You pick the frame that you like. I'll talk to Barry. I'll talk to Nolan. We'll figure out how to get it on celluloid. But
I think Sirach wants the orgy scene, maybe.
Okay.
The orgy scene. I want Rutherford dressed up as Jake. That was my.
So good.
Yeah. He's like,
my moment.
I think it's asymmetrical enough. Yeah.
Yes.
Perfect.
Well, also, did you catch on the Deep Space Nine episode where he's like, "Hey, I want to go upstairs on the catwalk and kick my legs"?
Yes.
And actually, probably that would be another cell. Would be just that DS9 because you had the music rolling with the loops.
Yeah.
That DS9 shot of the ship, that was beautiful. Yeah, I would.
And the last thing on that one was the alligator hanging in Cisco's Creole kitchen. Remember, there was what an attention to detail, unbelievable.
And that's all to the artist too on stuff where like the design will come in and you're like, is that an alligator up there? And then the background artist will be like, well, no, I went through every frame and like, here it is. It's in the show. You're like, oh, wow. Okay, cool.
So good.
That was a big fun thing on the show too. Like I said, so many people weren't Star Trek fans necessarily, and they became fans while working on the show. So you would have artists that would, I'm watching TNG in order just while I'm working, letting it play. And, I'm like, let me know when you get to the episode where Beverly, dates a candle. And they're like, ha. And 2 months later, they run down to your desk and they're like, that's a real episode. Or like, when you get to Rumpelstiltskin on Deep Space Nine, it's like, you'll get there.
That's funny. Sirach, we're not there yet on the candle. We're in season 4 right now in our Next Generation.
So sorry, spoilers.
No, he doesn't know the best part, though. You think you know, but well, Brad, this has been so much fun, and we really appreciate your time, the amount of work that you put in, and the blood, sweat, and tears that you put into this show. We really appreciate it. This is going to be a legacy that lives on forever, and you get to stamp your name on it, and hopefully we'll see a movie or a season 6 on a different streaming platform.
A movie. I'll take a made for direct to DVD. I'll take a hologram. Whatever they have, whatever they want to do. I will come back for any Lower Decks forever.
We've enjoyed this show. It's been really entertaining. It flies by. It's jam packed. It's just an adventure. It's been so much fun. And actually sad to see it kind of winding down. But,
I think you guys will like where season 5's heading. You'll like I said, it's not we don't wrap it up all in a bow. Like it's definitely things are left open for adventures to continue.
Very nice. Great. Well, thank you very much. Everybody at home, stick around. We've got a lot more to cover in just a second here. But for now, Brad, thank you so much. We really appreciate you. And we'll see you next time. Everybody at home, we'll be right back on The Seventh Rule. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to The Seventh Rule with Sirach, the Game Changer Lofton.
Hello.
Here are the trivioids of the week. Erica Tendy is busy eating all the winged slug rolls. Boimler has more Boimler has more bointers than hairs on his face. Fun Boimler gave all the ensigns an hour off. Erica Tendy is pregnant. The Orions are going by Azure now. Commander Ransom is glad that Mariner and Boimler are sharing a comm badge. Devon Tendy proposes a cutiny. Rutherford and Tendy used to slow roll the repairs. And T'Lyn destroyed the shuttle in a show of friendship. I thought that was the sweetest moment. I was like, oh, T'Lyn, you little softy. Are we finding out that T'Lyn's a little softy, Sirach?
I thought they were going to start to do a little connection there because it felt like Rutherford was like basically saying, I kind of like you now.
Yeah.
We don't know when Tindy's coming back, so let me focus my love towards you.
When the Orion's away, the mice will play, I guess.
Yeah, that's what I felt out of Rutherford. It felt like they were having a connection moment because she was kind of stalking him a little bit, And I was like, oh, what's going on here?
I wonder if they are going to have like a love triangle there because Rutherford and Tendy, remember, they've always kind of teased like there's a possibility, but they always pretend like, oh no, we're just best friends, right? They're always just kind of like, oh, and then there was the one time when they're on the Ferengi planet and they're basically trying to make them like make out or live together or whatever it was, and and he's got them all dressed up and they're just like, oh, this is weird, But maybe
when they were pretending to be a couple, I think.
Yeah, that's what it was. And then what if T'Lyn starts kind of encroaching a little bit, and then that way Tendy is forced to say something. If T'Lyn leans in,
I think so. It would be a moment where like we get to figure out if this thing's going to happen or not, and then it frees Rutherford up to invest in somebody that will probably reciprocate. Who knows?
Well, he's stuck between a girl that puts him in the friend zone and a girl that has no emotions or that represses her emotions. It's kind of a toughie.
Yeah.
So
I like the line in this episode when she says, "I did varsity solar sailing in high school." That line had me tickling.
The solar sailing just made me think of the Deep Space Nine episode.
Yeah,
Explorers.
we solar sail. Yeah.
I was like, oh, that's my favorite DS9 episode, Explorers. And if you watch closely, I actually saw Tendy say, hammock time.
Yeah, right.
She didn't really, but Avery did say that in that episode, hammock time.
Yeah, he did.
But that was nice to see.
It was nice to see. I can say, though, here's my thing about the Tendy storyline. It a little bit takes me away from the Lower Decks main crew and cast. And I'm not so sure that I like her character being the one that has its own entire, like, basically A plot or B plot.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes away from the other cast. And I feel like if this is going to be a last type season of a show, I want to see more from Ransom and Shax and Billingsley and T'Ana, right? I want to see those characters also get some development. I feel like ripping Tendy away take away their ability to get work in the stories as well.
Yeah, well, luckily Tendy's back. She's presumably going to be back for the next 8 episodes. There might be a revisit onto the planet because her sister is pregnant. There might be more to that, or maybe not. But yeah, I agree. I would love to see, and obviously, as Brad said and people have echoed, they didn't know this was going to be the last season. So they couldn't really write it as a last season. But I'm really hoping that we get to see those secondary characters more, and the tertiary characters. Because the 4 or 5 lower deckers, we've enjoyed the heck out of them. But I also want to see a little more Shax and a little more Dr. T'Ana and a little more Captain Freeman and a little more Ransom You know,
That's what I'm saying. I feel like Tendy's Orion storyline has been really worked out a lot in this series. Like she had that whole, going back season where she went back home, and that's when we found out she was the winter solstice, whatever, whatever. But it felt like, like we've gotten a lot of backstory on her and a lot of character development on her, but Miggly Mo, has just cameos here and there. Dr. Ta'ana doesn't have much. They went with the whole Shax and Ta'ana. Where was the follow up on their love?
Yeah, they had a lot. I was thinking about them because they had a lot of kind of build up around like the second and third season, and we're like,
Yeah.
oh, this is fun. Here we go.
And it was funny. It was funny the two of them
right
being horny horn dogs and talking sex all the time was kind of funny on the. It's a good. It made for good comedy.
I'd love to revisit that. Yeah, absolutely. I love them as a couple. People love them. People talked about them all the time. They were hilarious. I'd also love to revisit the Mugatu who likes to watch. That was also, I mean, just because it was a well fleshed out character. It's very fleshy.
Oh, is that why? Yeah. So that just in my opinion, I don't need more Tendy storyline. That's I'm sorry, not to be no knock on the actor that's doing the voice for Tendy. It's not about that. It's just about I feel like I have enough backstory on her character where I know she's the reluctant princess who is guided by a righteous, kind of compass, and who doesn't look at killing the same way. It kind of defies a lot of the stereotypes of Ryan. So that's where she comes into place.
Right. And that's kind of a big Star Trek trope of the alien that defies their stereotype. Like Worf, he's a Klingon who was raised by humans. Then you have, Rom, who's a Ferengi with no business sense, who's really nice. Then you have Odo, who is a founder, but he's separate. That kind of goes along with that trope. So I guess maybe T'Lyn might be the Vulcan who's just like, screw it, I don't want to wait 7 years for Pon farr. I'm going for Rutherford right now. Maybe there'll be something like that.
Yeah, there could be something like that. But just give me more of the other characters. That's all I'm saying. I just feel like unfair. I feel like her character has gotten a lot more focal in this fifth season than I would actually care for. I want to see some of the other development. T'Lyn, for example, would be a nice back. What's the backstory on her? I don't really have that much backstory.
Yeah, we got a little bit, like in season
a little bit
1 and season 2. Yeah, way back in the day. But there's also been a discussion. I submit that there are 5 lower deckers, right? Rutherford, Mariner, Tendi, Boimler, and T'Lyn is now the 5th lower decker. Okay. But I recently did a poll, and like 60% of the people said, no, it's 4 lower deckers. And T'Lyn is just kind of like an extra secondary character. And I'm like, that's weird. I kind of feel like she's been added as the 5th lower decks character, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe she's more along the line of like Shax and Ransom and Dr. Ta'ana as a secondary character.
I never really thought that out. I don't know. I never thought that out. I guess she does have an air of superiority, I guess, or outranking or some kind of. She does have that air, but that's just the natural Vulcan air you would get no matter what rank Vulcan you play. I don't know. I kind of would lean your way and say that she's the 5th lower decker.
Yeah,
but she doesn't do. They haven't given her menial lower deck stuff to do yet. I haven't seen her been prescribed the task that would be considered, unless looking after the lower deckers is the lower deck task itself.
I feel like she's actually ranked lower than they are. I think she's like an acting ensign or something like that. But obviously, like you said, Vulcans, you can never tell because of the way they act. But let's talk a bit. First of all, I loved the Blazzards, that Blazzard bird that was like, ah, or whatever.
Yeah.
But what did you think about Boimler trying to create Bointers? Because now they've all been influenced by seeing their alternate universe selves. So he thinks, hey, I'm going to grow a beard. I'm going to be a great captain. I'm going to be a great leader. It's kind of influencing them. Mariner wants to party, but also kind of wants to be serious. She's like, whoa, my counterpart was a captain. What do you think of all that?
Yeah. Look, it's consistent with Boimler, who's always been trying to kind of fit in, always Mr. Starfleet. He wants to be the, get it right Starfleet guy. So, him having dreams of the captain, I think that's not, that's not unlike Boimler. It's just the other Boimler was just cooler and more successful. He had a suave about it. He had like the goatee with the Riker. He was cooler, but he was also the same kind of nerd inside, who's just more effectively at getting everybody's trust and belief in him because he had this confidence in himself. And I think that's what he's trying to, exude. But if it's not authentic, it's not going to be real. So him trying to, hey, is that what I should do? Because people would like it. That's never going to really materialize the way you want to. Just being true to yourself. So yeah, I don't know how I feel about it. I guess how I feel is I still would like to see more relationship growth in these characters. I'd like to see Boimler maybe dating or something, or Mariner dating or something. You know what I mean? It feels like the only relationship stuff that we have is the Tindy Rutherford stuff, which was awkward. It wasn't like, when then the Shaxx Dr. Thomas stuff.
Yeah, I think you're going to get your wish, because if I remember correctly, in the season 5 trailer, if you'll remember, maybe like season 2 or something, Mariner was dating that blue Andorian girl, Jennifer, I think. And maybe she went away to a different ship, but in the trailer, it shows her coming back. And I don't want to spoil anything, but she does something kind of that shows that the relationship there is part of the plot. So you're definitely going to get your wish there. I don't know what episode it is. I can tell you it's not episode 1 or 2 though. But we're going to see that, and it's going to be about Mariner. And the one little bit they gave us was not just funny, but also seemed very interesting, where you're like, oh, that's an interesting kind of plot twist or something like that. So I'm actually really excited for that. So I hope you're going to enjoy that, because it seems like something that it seems like it's a good writing, idea, what they showed. So.
Yeah, I want to see it. I actually kind of would like to see Boimler and Mariner kind of have like an awkward, this never happened moment.
I totally think, right? It feels like that's going to be happening for the last 5 seasons, and it's exactly that. It feels like it's almost like a Tasha Yar and a Data thing, right? Where something happens, and she's like, oh my God, ew, this never happened, Boims, or something like that. And Boimler's like, well, I don't know, maybe, no, this never happened. She lifts up a batleth. He's like, okay, it never happened, or, who knows?
Yeah.
But something funny like that.
Something funny like that, where they can bring it back up as a tease every time maybe Boimler says something. She might take it the wrong way. Like, are you, like, I thought we talked about this. And he's like, what? I was talking about the compressor coiler,
the drive shaft. What's the big deal?
Exactly. What do you so
I'm talking about the thrusters. Relax.
Exactly.
Anyway,
so
that'll be fun.
That'll be fun. They finally played with the idea of no money, one of the concepts of Star Trek, which is the living in a future with no money. And this is the first time that I feel like they actually directly addressed it and went into it when they
Yes.
talked about this, these people having to go cashless and, go into the society without money.
Right. And that's like they really spelled it out for. I mean, we kind of understood what the situation was, but this is the first time, like you said, where they actually tackle it. They say, look, now that they've joined the Federation and the Federation introduced replicators, you can replicate anything you want, which means you don't need to buy anything you want, which means nobody has to work to make these things. Nobody has to work to make shoes. Nobody has to work to chop onions. Nobody has to work to build anything, and nobody has to buy anything. So you're all set. Everybody go do what you want. Go be you. Go live your life.
Yeah, exactly.
Just
You
have
can
this
have
replicator and you're all
you
set.
you could drive whatever vehicle you want. You can wear whatever outfit you want to wear. It can all be materialized for you. And that was one of the points they made when Boimler kind of hijacked that little whatever motorcycle, whatever thing it was, little
Yeah, the speeder.
yeah, that. And and I thought that was kind of, she was like, oh yeah, that's all right. We'll just replicate another one or something to that effect. Like, it's not a big deal that you took that one. But that's interesting. This is the first time I've seen that element of Star Trek really kind of dug into. It's something that's always been assumed, this is how it is. This is the way it is. But they don't actually talk about the conversion of a planet or a people or a race or a group of people converting from the ideology of, you know, commerce and cash and money to the idea of the Federation where money is no longer relevant. This is the first kind of, and it's funny that it's in the animated series that it's the first time they're talking about this, but I don't know, unless it's in another episode of Star Trek, I don't think it's ever directly
No, not
dealt with.
this.
It's part of the storyline.
Of a planet or a race going from
Yes.
money to no money, no problems. That was a cool shirt. But yeah, I mean, but Lower Decks does that, and that's kind of what Brad was talking about. Like with the animated show, people are a little skeptical. Like, what are you going to cover? But these guys have really covered some ground that has never been covered before. First of all, just the premise. I mean, there was one episode in Next Generation. I think it might be season 5. It's called Lower Decks, so we'll be seeing it, soon.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, this is a series that's just about the ensigns, the people that scrub the toilets, or the people that vacuum the floors or clean out the holodeck and things like that. The ones that just kind of say "I sir" and "No sir" on our Next Generation Deep Space Nine episodes. Now we get to follow their lives. Super interesting. And this is another thing that they've covered. They're filling up all the gaps, all the holes that 10 other series of Star Trek never covered,
Yeah, absolutely.
Love it.
That's what makes this show good. It dabbles in a lot of the things that other Star Trek don't really talk about, or maybe it's just outside of the realm of the storytelling. But for example, one thing that jumps to mind is when they were doing the Starfleet recruitment booth at the fair.
So good.
And I'm like, that's so good. That's exactly what they do with the military. So it's like, these people are thinking outside of the box, and I love that about this show.
Yeah, that was one of the best episodes. That was just really memorable, really a good one. And Mariner made a really good friend, that pirate girl. I forgot her name, but that Indiana Jane, friend. That was cool.
Oh yeah.
But we're already running low on time. So before we go, Sirach Lofton, what do you think? Is there a home run of today's episode? Who gets the home run of today's episode?
Home run of this episode. Yeah. That's a tough one, It's really tough.
It's a toughie.
I'm gonna go. Jeez, this is hard for me. Um, for me, I'm gonna go with Rutherford. He makes me laugh too much.
Every time.
Yeah. So I like him.
Mm-hmm. I think I'm going to go with that Blazzard thing that went like, because they did that sound twice and it cracked me up both times. And it's not easy to be like a voiceover actor where they're like, okay, just make one sound. And you have to like be funny in that one sound. Otherwise, the point of the gag doesn't work. If it just makes a noise and it's not funny, then who cares? It's not. But they made the funny sound, made me laugh, and I was like, wow. And so I even wrote down Blazzard. He's funny or whatever I did. But,
I used to do that with my daughter when she was younger. I would say, if we get separated, I'm going to make a special sound, and then you'll know it's me. And she said, "What's the sound?" And I would make some weird like, ah, ah. And she's like,
please don't do that.
Don't embarrass me, Dad.
That's awesome. Now, when she's playing basketball, you should be like, hey, I'm going to watch the defensive schematics, right? Watch how they're moving around, watch the defensive schemes.
Yeah.
And if I think you should pass instead of shoot, I'll do it. I'll be like, ah! Be like, do it.
Yeah.
All right. So here are some people that also make fantastic animal sounds. Their names are Homer Frizzell, Dr. Anne-Marie Siegel, Eve England out in Wales, Yvette Blackman Tom, TJ Jackson Bay out in Missouri, Titus Muller, Dr. Muhammad Noor, Tierney C. Diekman, Anil O. Palat, Joe Balsarati, Mike Gu, Dr. Stephanie Baker, Carrie Schwent, Faith Howell, Edward Foltz, my live from Tokyo, the Matt Boardman, Chris McGee, Justin Weir, Jake Barrett, Henry Unger, Allison Leach Hyde, Julie Manosfi, Jed Thompson, Dr. Susan V. Gruner, Glenn Iverson, Dave Gregory, Tim Baum, Chris Sternett, Dylan Powell, Peter Draymore, Chris Garris, and of course, Jason Oken and Greg K. Wickstrom out in Hawaii. All right, that's it for us, you guys. It's been a fun time with Lower Decks. We've got 8 episodes left, so enjoy the heck out of them and tell everybody on Twitter and on social media how much you're enjoying them, and thank the people that bring it to you. People like Mr. Brad Winters. I believe he is at Brad in LA, at Brad in LA on Twitter. I believe that's what it is. All right, we'll see you next time, everybody. And until then, always remember the 7th rule.